My name is Brendan Gill. I am the CEO and founder of Opensignal, which is a UK headquartered company with global operations focused on being the independent standard when it comes to mobile network connectivity. It's really important to have data. You can't really make improvements without understanding the current picture today. And you can't really understand the current picture today without an independent view of things from a company that doesn't have a stake in the game. We're completely independent. We've published our independence charter to the market, so we've laid down the principles by which we remain independent so that our data can be trusted. And the reason that's important is that by having this independent data out there, that encourages competition, it encourages improvements, whereas in some places around the world, I won't talk about Malaysia, but there can be false data can be used, even things to the extent of calling them alternative truths or even fake news is something that happens and creates excuses and a reason to not make improvements. When there's independent and accurate data showing the true picture, that drives real improvements in connectivity, which is critical for the development of the world. I mean, it's one of the biggest drivers of economic development and prosperity, and so that's ultimately the part of the ecosystem that we see ourselves playing in. Yeah, I think there's a few things there. 5G is an exciting development for the industry. It's still a little way away from being a reality. I think it's still in the early stages, but it has the potential to be quite powerful when it comes to connectivity. I think one of the big challenges is ensuring that people understand the benefit that they're going to get personally from 5G and why it's important for them to upgrade, because they'll need to buy new devices, pay for new subscriptions, so they need to understand what they're getting for that, and the industry will need to communicate that to consumers. I think an important thing to mention is that they'll go hand in hand, 5G wireless and the fixed line operations as well, and fiber, because you can't really, every 5G connectivity that you have, every cell tower that's going to be 5G is going to need to be backed up by a fiber connection. And right now that's not always the case. Some towers don't have that, and therefore for the country to see the reality of both 5G and fixed wireless, they need to both move in step with each other. Firstly, it's really important what you measure. And I think we're still in a process of getting the right measurements to track so that the right improvements can be made on the back of them. We as a company really believe in measuring experience of consumers, not just the technology by itself or the network by itself, and actually seeing, well, what is the actual everyday experience of the network? And not just in abstract KPIs. We talk a lot about things like speed. Speed is important, it's good to have a fast connection, but it's absolutely not everything. Things like video experience is really critical for people to have a good experience. The majority of traffic on mobile networks is video, and actually to have a good video experience, you don't just need a good speed, there are other factors that impact the experience that you're getting. So what we do about that is we measure them individually. We look at the video experience specifically so that we can understand what the current situation is and then encourage improvements and monitor them as they come. So it's not there isn't a single answer for that. There isn't just one set of benchmark. We think it's really important to measure the right thing, and that's really looking at the actual real world experience that people are getting. Yeah, we work with operators globally. We work in over 30 different countries around the world. And we've had a big focus on Malaysia as a very fast developing country where the operators are rapidly making improvements to connectivity. They can use our measurements to understand not just what their network looks like internally, but actually the end user experience. And that can mean everything from one thing that's not always clear is the full end-to-end experience that people get when they're using their device. So sometimes there's a big focus on things like coverage. Coverage is very important, but that's been something that's been worked on for a long time. We also monitor things like the actual content people are looking at. So what's the connectivity to YouTube? What's the connectivity to Facebook? And is the connection between the operators and the content providers as optimized as it could be? So part of what operators will actually understand that and use our data to make improvements on that. And the final part is that we publish our data very publicly. We make it available to the whole industry. And by adding that transparency with this independent data from Opensignal, that actually creates an environment of competition and an environment of improvements. So it focuses the operators to work on improving connectivity in the most efficient way possible, and that leads to better outcomes for consumers who are the ultimate beneficiaries of that. Sure, I mean, so Opensignal's methodology, like I mentioned, is really focused on experience and seeing what do typical users get in the real world. So all of our data comes directly from real world consumers, from the mobile device that they use every day, in the situations that they're in every day. We do things like we collect our data automatically. So it's not just when a user chooses to run a test, but automatically testing the network 24/7 at random times during the day so that we get a really representative and typical measure of what the network experience is like. That's really important to be just really reflective of everyday experience. And then it comes down to what you measure. And like I said, we look at things like speed and latency, our classic KPIs, which are indicative of performance, but not the be-all and end-all. So we really believe that you've got to measure the network the way people experience it. So last year we launched video experience measurements. First time this has been done by an independent company globally. And that really gives people a picture of the actual video experience they're getting on their network. And we also do things like we look at what we call 4G availability. This is the actual proportion of time users are connected to the network. So instead of traditional ways of looking at coverage, this is a very user-centric way of understanding what is your everyday network experience like. So like I said, it's really about getting the right measures which reflect experience and then ensuring that your methodology is measuring that in the most reflective way and then having a sophisticated layer of analytics on top of that that is interpreting that data in the most appropriate and accurate way. Well, I wish that was a simple question to answer. In reality, we don't say that one operator is better than another. We think that's too general. What really matters is, it really depends on what kind of user you are. So if you're a very data hungry user, if you download large files very regularly, then probably speed is going to be the most important thing to you. If you're watching videos a lot, video experience is going to be the most important. If you don't do a lot, but you just need a bit of connectivity, you just check your emails or browse the web, then maybe it's 4G availability and just the proportion of time you can get connected. And for each of those, we see differences in the operators in Malaysia who are providing the best service. So I would recommend that people look at Opensignal's latest report for Malaysia, which came out, I believe, in April this year. And you can see across each of these categories which operator is providing the best experience for users in Malaysia. And indeed, we regularly report on the market. So as you track our reports over time, you'll be able to see how that picture is evolving. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of change at the moment in Malaysia. There's been rapid improvements over the last few years in terms of the developments different operators are making. In particular, the government of Malaysia has got a very ambitious plan around broadband improvements, both on the mobile side and the fixed line and fiber side of things. I believe there's a big announcement in September that's really going to be pushing that forward. So I think it's an exciting landscape, it's an exciting country. We'll be monitoring those developments very closely. And I think that's across the board in terms of both the availability of services and the coverage, but also when you're covered, the actual quality of the connection through things like video experience and the speed that you're connected. So we are seeing positive movements on all of those, and I think if the plan that the government is talking about comes to fruition, then potentially the pace of those improvements will also increase going forward.